I greet you in Jesus' precious name. We have called this program, Lest We Forget. Okay? Never forget your past. Without a prologue, that's your past, there's no future. And somebody said to me, yeah, but there's no future in the past. And I agree with that. But if you don't know where God has brought you from, how can you appreciate where He's going to take you to? Now, if you and I go to the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, Joshua chapter 4, and I'm just going to read a few verses, starting in verse 21. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan River before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which He dried up before us until we had crossed over, that the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord that is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. That's why Joshua told the leaders of the 12 tribes to take a large stone and put it in the middle of the Jordan River when the people crossed over behind the high priest. It is so important to encourage your children and to remind them where God had brought you from. And that is the principle of the Feast of Tabernacles. What they do, they build those little dwelling places, sometimes in their lounge, sometimes in their garden. You get them outside restaurants, and they get decorated with fruit, with figs and olives and pomegranates. And then they go and sit in the evening, the elders, and they tell their children how God had faithfully brought them out of slavery from Egypt right across into the promised land. And you and I need to do the same. I got hold of my grandsons. I've got 6 grandsons that are within months of each other. I have 11 grandchildren altogether. And I tell them how we arrived in South Africa from Zambia with a truck and a trailer, and how we built this farm out of bush. And that encourages them, because I tell them how God miraculously brought rain when we had to try and put a fire out. I tell them how in a drought season, God still gave us a bumper crop. And I also tell them about the other challenges that we've had. And that strengthens their faith. Are you doing the same? You know, I remember as a young man, I was working on a cattle beef stud in New South Wales in Australia. I'm talking many, many years ago, probably before some of you were born. And you know, the guys would go into the pub in the evening. And at 6 o'clock, I think it was 6 o'clock, everything would stop. And there were some rough guys in those pubs. And a little red light would go on in the corner, probably still happens today, I don't know, in the corner of that public house. And everybody would put their beer down on the table, and everybody would come to attention. And for 1 minute, they would remember the forces that died for freedom for Australia. I'm talking about the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and of course Afghanistan and everything else. And no one moved. And it doesn't matter how drunk a guy might be, doesn't matter how wild he was, everybody came to attention. You and I need to remember what Jesus Christ has done for us. And we need to tell our loved ones, just like Joshua told the tribal leaders, to remind their people from whence they had been brought. And that is what strengthens us to go forward. Don't be ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation for those who believe. First the Jew and then the Gentile. Romans 1:16. Until next time, goodbye.